Hi, everyone. Yes, so maybe some of you already attended the workshop I had previously. I'm Remarkable Workshop. And my presentation today is partly about some content we already discussed with some of you, so forgive me for maybe some repeat. But anyway, the name is Unconscious Bias at Work. And before we jump there, I would like to say that, first of all, there are lots of stereotypes in our societies, and unfortunately, it's not enough time to talk about all of them. That's why I decided to concentrate only on those which might influence your work, the effectiveness of your work, and actually your well-being at work. And talking about that, I would be actually give you a lot of examples about how Google actually deals with that. So probably it will be useful for some of you. Okay, I'm always a bit slow with clickers. So I'm pretty sure you all know how Google started more than 20 years ago, actually 21, with those two people. And now, of course, it's a huge corporation. It's more than 90,000 people all over the world, and we do have, yes, 160 offices, and people talk in many, many languages within our company. And we still have the same mission like 21 years ago, yes, to organize all information, but I'm pretty sure that to organize it within this amount of people in the office is much harder than before, for sure. So basically, yes, our company is quite diverse in terms of genders, cultures, different communities, etc. And it's pretty hard actually to have all those people all together in one space, making sure that they're all happy, they feel not only included to the whole team, but also, how we like to say sometimes, asked to dance. So basically, yes, this popular diversity and inclusion, it's not only having different people in the room, but making sure that they all have voice, they all have, how to say, like, they feel comfortable about being and working with these particular people and feeling free to say something. And try to keep this this atmosphere. Google does a lot of things, but it's all developing constantly. So I wouldn't say that Google is like number one in terms of like how to treat multicultural, multinational groups. It's all in the process. And I'll give you one example. Like even me, almost 9 years ago, when I applied first time, not the hiring manager, the recruitment specialist asked me first, like, which university did I graduate from? Because back there, it was very, very important for Google to hire people from the certain schools. Of course, they were smart enough not only concentrate on, let's say, American or European schools, they were actually value some universities from all over the world, but let's say in Russia it was only like 5 probably, and most of them were technical, because the number one focus for Google was always hiring software engineers. And well, I was probably lucky because I graduated from the technical university in St. Petersburg. I was not an engineer, but I was not even applying for that role. I was applying for sales role. So basically, I've got lucky. But after some years, our HR specialists, they actually came to the conclusion that it's much more important to focus on the actual work-related experience or the actual person and his background rather than the school he or she graduated from. So now we don't have this requirement, and you can come from any school and maybe sometimes even not graduating from anything, because some of our very talented engineers, they never actually studied at the university in some cases. Yes, this is a true story. Anyway, by the way, do you notice anything like not really usual in this picture? Okay, I will explain. So basically, yes, Google is placed in Silicon Valley, which is probably the most important place in the world still for startups and for all IT innovations. But even there, only 11% of all startups are settled down or run by women. So most of them are founded by men. And this TV show, this is popular TV show, I'm sure some of you know or watched, it actually it's the typical situation in Silicon Valley. So basically no women, just men. And this is something we call like hidden signal. So basically when women watch this TV show, they automatically start thinking, okay, probably this is not the right place for me, or maybe I shouldn't even think about having a startup, or at least it's hard to make this decision for women. Anyway, there are reasons why it's happening like this, because our brain is working with a huge amount of information every moment, well, every second, let's say. And only 42 bits, 40, we can actually process consciously. So this is just a fact. So basically, almost 100% goes through of information goes through our brain on an unconscious base. And this is like relevant for everyone. That's why it's so important to actually think about like what's happening every moment. But basically, all of us, we are biased. And I am biased, and this is normal. This is how world works. But there are some solutions how to actually, deal with that situation. So basically, there are a few factors which makes each situation much more difficult to resolve without any stereotypes on the background. Basically, it's the task itself. So, for instance, let's imagine the situation, you would like to hire a babysitter for your child. Most probably you will think about women in this case. Or you need to find a good, accountant. It's historically related to women as a main profession, not for men. And there are lots of examples like that. So basically, when there is a specific task, you tend to think about you tend to think stereotypically. Then numbers. If you need to make a decision very quickly with a lot of amount of information, with high numbers, let's say you hire someone, you screen in CVs, you get 100 CVs per day. It's again very hard to look through each CV very, very carefully. So probably you will be biased in terms of, okay, I would like to hire a man for this role. Then clarity. When we don't have enough information about something, which is most probably every time, our brain also fills out all those informational gaps with the stereotypes we all already know, because it's just much easier. And the perceiver. So basically, yes, our emotional state influences the situation sometimes. So basically, if I'm sad, if I'm busy with something else, yes, I might come to the conclusion with a very, very biased mind. So now I'm gonna jump to some examples to show that even very tiny bit of bias may have very huge consequences. So here is, we are working, we at Google, we like different researchers, we like simulations, probably as well as you do. And here is a simulation. So basically, that's just a hypothetical organization with, let's say, equal amount of male and female in each job level for the moment. And then there is a performance cycle happening twice a year, let's say. And the simulation is about that each performance cycle, female gets the ratings just 1% less than men do for the same type of job. And let's see what happens with this organization after a while. So basically, if we go up to the senior level, there are much more men on board in the top management rather than female, just because of 1% each time. Anyway, we already discussed this with some people during I'm Remarkable workshop. Yes, it's also a very well-known fact that companies with high proportion of women in boards, they actually perform better. Why is that? Because, well, women, they can generate great ideas and they also can be very good people managers. And in general, like diverse companies, diverse teams, they overperforms like the homogeneous ones also, because of the same reason, because of different ideas coming from different people, and sometimes it helps a lot. Anyway, there are 4 methods we use at Google to overcome this unconscious bias. And first of all, you need to define the success. So until you don't know, it's very hard to proceed, right? So let's jump to that. So for instance, again, one more simulation from MIT, coming from 2005, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, they were trying to analyze how many CVs people with different type of names should actually send over to get at least the job interview call. Not even a job yet, of course. And they found out that, well, of course it's happening in the United States, that's why we talk about these names. But anyway, they found out that applicants with like very regular American names, like Brandon, Greg, Emily, they need to send over like, let's say, this amount of CVs. And people with, let's say, more exotic, like Indian, African, Asian names, they need to send like twice more just to get the job call interview. And we have our own local example here at Google. So all our recruitment specialists, they based somewhere in Europe. I don't know exactly where, but not in Russia. And they are not Russian, they don't speak Russian. That's why when they try to fill out the pipeline of candidates for the role, they don't care about names like at all. So basically Masha or, I don't know, Magomed or whoever else doesn't make any difference for them. That's why in our office in Moscow, we basically have representatives from almost all ex-Soviet republics. And I know, I mean, yes, maybe it's not the best example in the world, but I know companies and I know some friends even who don't hire people with, let's say, like, I don't know, names from, I don't know, Dagestan or Chechnya, because they have a lot of stereotypes about those people, for instance, and they don't want to have them in their teams. But this is exactly the unconscious bias we normally follow when we don't know the situation 100%. This is also one example. It's not local, it's American as well. So in some small city, there was a task to hire the police sheriff. And in that situation, they decided to proceed with like maximum unbiased process. So people who were doing the hiring, they simply removed the name from the CV. So all CV, they came just with like relevant information as school, like a background, previous job experience, so stuff like that. And they finally chose the best candidate based on the CV only, but it turned out that it was like female CV. And then all hard talk started, because people started thinking, okay, but that's such a hard job, but it's such a stressful one, so probably female is not the best candidate, and they simply didn't hire her. So they just took one more CV, which was like number 2 after hers, and that was man, and they finally hired him because they simply assumed that he would be the better fit for the job. So what we do at Google to decrease this number of bias while hiring people? Of course, we have very well structured interviews. And a few years ago, we used to have too many of them. So some people I was personally interviewed like 6 times while I was hired, and it was quite stressful because all people, they asked me the same questions. So I was surprised. And then the number of interviews decreased to 4. So for now, all candidates, they don't have more than 4. In some cases, probably if Google is looking for someone very, very senior, like, I don't know, top manager, yes, in this situation, they might be a bit more. But like in general, just 4. And during those 4 interviews, Google checks these 4 dimensions. So first of all, it's, well, I would say it's role-related knowledge for sure. Then it's general cognitive ability. So basically, it's like how adequate this person, how he thinks about other stuff. So things like that. Then leadership, and last but not least, the Googliness, which is basically something related to corporate culture. So there are some things like psychological things which we're looking for in our candidates, and we're trying to check it during the interview. So also, it's quite interesting because it's not only our HR or recruitment specialists who are doing those interviews. Almost every Googler might become an interviewer if he or she wants. So I actually was involved a couple of times into the interviewing process, because basically while you go through these 4 interviews, you normally speak to people from different teams, not necessarily from the team which is hiring you. It's needed because Google thinks that most of projects, they might be cross-functional, so you will have to deal not only with your team, but with other teams as well. That's why it's better to have those people in the interviewing panel. Anyway, one more funny example regarding top managers, not at Google, but in general. So there was a research study of focus groups. I might be wrong. So basically, people were asked to list all those good manager definitions and try to attribute each definition to female or male, and what was happened. So basically, 71% of all good manager qualities was attributed to male, while only 10 was attributed to women. And basically, all those 71%, yes, it is important for a good manager for sure, but that means that by default, actually, male are already perceived as a better managers rather than female, and that's a huge loss, because sometimes actually you need these qualities in your manager too, for sure. So the second method is to collect data and measure results, because if we don't measure something, then there's going to be never change. Yeah, okay, I think I will be in time. So yes, you cannot improve definitely what you cannot measure. Here, one more example about performance management. It's also a simulation. So people don't like, a lot of companies don't like this performance management right now because it's stressful, it takes a lot of time, so some companies decide not to have it at all, but that's what happens. So basically, 2 people, female and male, they were assessed as an individual performers in one case, and then as a group. And what was happened? So basically, as an individual performance, going through this performance cycle, they've got almost equal results, but which is interesting, women got even more, just slightly, because based on projects and feedback from the colleague. And when they were actually assessed as a group, and then they were trying to distinguish each person involvement, women got much less. So by default, people assume that within the group, within the mixed group, the input of females was less than the input of male. That's what happened. And also, if we don't track numbers, somebody would do this for us. So that's what happened with Google a few years ago. Maybe you know that sometimes instead of our regular logo on the search page, we have these funny interactive doodles, which are normally related to famous people. And basically, we do it quite regularly. So it's normally like 2 doodles per month happening like globally, and we never calculate. Oi, what did I do? Anyway, I can still tell the story. So we never actually calculated previously like what were those doodles related to, female or male. And then someone, I don't remember who exactly, but there was an organization who decided to calculate that for us, and it turned out that we have like 2 times more male doodles rather than females. And then Google just simply decided to resolve that issue, so we put it as our OKR to have this equal amount of female versus male. It was actually harder to do because, well, basically, if we look back through like 200 years back, it's clear that there were more scientists, more men scientists as women, or more musicians, men musicians and versus women musicians. But still, Google just maybe extended the doodle team, but we did that job, and now we have like in 2018 we had like exactly 50-50 ratio. Yeah, so that's how it looked like for now. And also, you should see the hidden signals. I would rephrase that a little bit. So the power signal is huge. Here is a very funny American example happened in Texas. So two guys, they were asked to wear these different caps, and they were offered to go to the shopping mall, the big shopping mall, trying to find a job for themselves. So basically, the task was to communicate with as many shops as possible, asking about, do you have a job? Can I apply for a role? Something like that. And that was the reaction for those two. So basically, the guy wearing Texan and proud cap, first of all, people were much more likely to talk to him rather than with the second guy. Also, the length of each conversation was also much longer in the first case rather than in the second one. And the negative perception of those people were also quite different. So basically, the gay proud, he's got like much more negative phrases to himself. Wait, sorry. And this is also an example of choosing a profession, like a future profession, or being a child. So when girls, they were invited to the room to talk about IT professions, they were invited to the room which was actually decorated with like pretty typical geeky stuff. And most of girls after that, they were much less likely to see the IT as their first future profession. As well as guys, when they were invited to the room which was decorated in a neutral way, they were also much less likely to see IT as their future profession. So basically all those signals, they really influenced their decision. That's why in Google we have quite a diverse atmosphere in terms of how we decorate our meeting rooms, our office spaces, just to be sure that everyone might feel comfortable and might find something which is, you know, suitable for yourself. Also, a couple of hidden signals, like local ones. So this is like a high school of economics. It's the page of their website, which is about startups. So basically, there was a competition, startup competition, and if you just watch here, you can see clearly that most of startups, they are they were pitched by men. What does that mean? Maybe you would ask. But that clearly means that, for instance, me as a girl, as a student of high school of economic, visiting this web page, I might be sure that probably it's not for me, because I don't really see any girls over there. So this is important, and this is worth to think about when you actually, shape your web page sometimes. Or this is my favorite. This is like one of the latest. This is the leaders of Russia, with a lot of people you might see on TV. Basically, it's not exactly true. There are women. We do have women in our government for sure, but the front page and the second one, it's all full with male pictures, which clearly means for women that probably, yes, it's typical male job, and I wouldn't stand over there even if I apply or even if I start. And the last but was not least, actually, well, basically, it's worth to talk about stereotypes with yourself first, within your group of people you work with second, and basically, it's better to be conscious about that, to be conscious that they exist. So first of all, when you're about to do something, just ask yourself, am I doing right thing right now? So basically, if you just give you a second, just 1 second, to think about your future decision about like who to hire, who is in front of you, it might already result in a different outcome. Also, explain your decisions for yourself, like why exactly did I do that? Because you might find some interesting, I would say, like hidden things while you're processing something, and it might be influenced by unconscious bias, of course. And ask for the feedback when you make a decision. Ask for the feedback from your colleague, from your, I don't know, friends, for instance. And yes, this is also very important. Empower others to talk about this thing. So basically, what we do in Google, we have internal training, because you might think that, okay, probably you all unbiased in your company, but this is not true. We have a lot of new hires like each day, and it's very important to actually talk with people and sometimes remind for yourself about these things. And we have internal training, which is like, it's called bias busting, with very, very real situations which we discuss in groups. Try to understand, like, was it biased decision or was it not, and try to find the best solution. So yeah, and of course, if you work with some people, like you are a people manager, yes, always ask your reports, like why and how they actually came to this conclusion. And it's very important to make decisions collectively. So in Google, for instance, again, if it comes to the hiring process, at the end, after all those interviews I told you before, there is a hiring committee which never saw you, which never heard you. They just have like list of papers filled out by other people who were your interviewers, and they just try to evaluate the whole situation like completely in a completely non-biased way. And there were some cases where people where people were not hired after being reviewed by hiring committee, because sometimes, you know, there is someone you really like, he goes through interview, he or she goes through the interviews, everyone else likes, and then you start forgetting maybe some small signals you notice, but while everyone is so happy about this person, you simply think, okay, he or she is nice, he would be a good fit for us. But then those guys, they're exactly designed for, like, you know, reviewing the whole thing without any emotions behind, I would say. So that's basically almost all from my side. So yes, even if you commit to one of the sections, that would be already a huge change in your behavior, and you will notice that. And this is very important. This is our external website where you can find much more information, where you can find some tests just to check how biased you are. I encourage you to do that. It's a very interesting exercise. And also one more, so Harvard recently started doing those tests as well. So you can You can visit Harvard website as well for that. Any questions maybe? Okay, thank you.
Victoria, thank you for your outstanding performance. Yes, we actually have some questions.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
we just use a special website. All right, the first one, what do you think about feminitives? Can they somehow help with the bias problem?
No, I don't know. Actually, some feminitives, I don't like how they sound because I'm pretty sure, I mean, we should switch to Russian right now because in English it would, I don't even know how to translate, but basically автор и авторка, ну, как бы, it sounds very weird in Russian. So basically, I think using those feminitives, we should be also aware of what we are talking about and make sure that it doesn't sound offensive for those who we refer that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the next question, could you specify what are Googliness?
Googliness, it's a combination of different factors. So it's definitely positive mindset for sure. It might change. Of course, we all sometimes go through the mood swings, but in general, like, yes, if the person is quite positive during the interview, it helps. Also, its ability to go through like constantly changing environment, because in our company we have so many reorganization processes. So you might start in one team and after 1 year you might end up in completely different organization inside of Google. And some people we know that they don't like such dramatical changes. So basically being able to adjust yourself and still perform well, that's very important too. I guess it's also having like very interesting hobbies outside of the job, because we believe that people who is doing a lot apart from their working space also can bring lots of additional experience and ideas to the team. So I'm pretty sure it's not all I just said, but yeah, that's sort of main ones.
Okay, thank you. The next question is there any way to overcome the bias on the management level, or should you just leave if you realize that your boss is biased and you won't be evaluated equally?
It's so hard question, because I can tell you that even in Google we do have still a lot of managers and top management who are quite biased. But what is good about Google, you can always say something. So basically we do have the internal website, which is like go/say something. And if you notice the situation which shouldn't happening from your point of view, you can actually report it without being scared to be fired or something like that. Of course, if you report something serious, there will be investigation, but and you might be involved, of course. But it doesn't mean that there is a penalty for that for you exactly. Maybe it's for the manager at the end. Yeah.
And okay, what is the most strange bias you faced at Google?
At Google? No, I actually gave this example already today, but once I was applying for the role in different country, and basically it was London. So the role itself was like 100% for me, from my perspective, because I was still in sales back there, and I was working already with all those clients they were trying to find the manager for. And before applying like a formal application, I decided to talk to the hiring manager. It's quite common practice within Google. So if you don't know the team, if you don't know the manager, you can just schedule a short VC call with him or her, just to understand better, like who is hiring, like what kind of the team and stuff like that. So basically, while we were having that call, he, without even asking me a lot of questions, just seeing me like as a person, as a female, he just simply told me that, well, you know, for this role, I'm actually looking for someone with a consultancy background, like, you know, those white collar guys from Morgan Stanley. And I was like, So basically, I was too shocked to actually react properly. So if someone tells me something like that right now, I would probably visit that go/say something link. But back there, I was not really sure, like, what was that? So I just decided that he's probably a jerk and just forgot about that. Yeah.
Okay, so I believe this is gonna be the last online question. Can you say that you are unbiased at work?
Me?
Yes.
Actually, from the slides I showed, it's clearly that we all biased most of the time, but I'm trying not to. I still have a lot, not at work, maybe more outside, but sometimes, yes, I ask myself a question like, why did I think that way right now? Because sometimes it's even about different nationalities. And I'm not a racist, of course, but sometimes we do have some assumptions about people from the certain countries, that they would probably behave this way.